you might be using the sweetest words ever, but what you're actually saying to somebody is foul. You're looking down at them. Jin pat andar bahar guddarte pale sansar. Here, Marji is saying the opposite now, saying that your words might not be so great on the outside. So that's why I'm not here advocating swearing, by the way. Jin diye so chitana avai. Marji is saying, though the one that has given to us, we've completely forgotten that one. Pasu Oankaar jani. Look what Guru Sahib is saying here. They're not saying you have become animal-like. They're saying straight out, you're an animal because of the way we speak to someone. We think we own them. This is still jin pat andar bahar guddar. What Maharaj is saying there is actually silk, meaning that it's coming from a very soft and pure place. Guru Sahib Ji could be saying, you've become an animal. Yeah, but it doesn't mean it's not sweet. Because when the Guru is saying that, there's an awakening in there. Guru is saying, wake up from that animal state. And don't forget that one. Welcome to the Japji Sahib Podcast. In this episode, we'll be going through the 9th stanza of Guru Nanak Dev Ji's divine words. We're currently going through the Suniai Pauriyan, the stanzas of listening. This is now the second listening pauri. What we're going to be looking at in this episode is how do we make more lasting changes in our life when we're stuck in being a certain way, and how do we make some of those changes and break away from certain habits that we want to break away from. So before we get into that, let's introduce our cameraman and guest and editor and everything else that he does, preacher and sing Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, that's fine. I know we had this huge conversation about do we say Fateh at the same time or do you say afterwards? And I always see this smirk on your face thinking, am I still waiting to say it just slightly afterwards?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I always think that, he's going to move on from that, but it's, yeah. So, yeah, I thought, we'll start it on a bit of a light note, and, but we'll get straight into it now. The first pankti here is Guru Nanak Dev Ji saying to us that Suniai Esar Barma Ind. And again, a reminder that our pause here on these pauriyan, these stanzas are after the Suniai. And the Suniai itself is, when we say it quick, it's not always so accurate in the way we pronounce it, but the pronunciation, again, a reminder is it's Suniai. So here, we've gone through in detail the whole idea behind Suniai itself, the listening, what type of listening the Guru is directing us towards. And it's an actual avastha, it's an actual state of being. And so that is covered in the previous episode. So if anybody's not watched that, do watch that one first, and then it'll all kind of fall into place and make a lot of sense.
You want to give a recap?
Yeah, we can do a quick recap here, of course. So if we just break it down very, very, concisely here, the Suniai here that we're talking about is that, first of all, we all know that we all have our own preconceived ideas, even when we're talking to someone. But here it's what we're saying is this complete surrender. And we can start practicing this even just in our daily conversations. And it's just learning how to surrender, listen with humility and with compassion, and give yourself completely with complete focus and listen to what somebody's saying. This is one of the ways of start practicing where we want to get to. And then when we are even singing and praising God, is being conscious of every word that we are saying. And that's part of that listening as well. The third thing I'll say is that when we're reciting the given mantras by the Guru, is to be completely absorbed in the sound and the vibration of those mantras, and being like literally on that perfectly balanced kind of middle ground of where we're taking in the gyan, the wisdom of what we're saying, but we're just absorbed in the vibration and the sound of the mantra as well, listening deeply to it. And then the fourth part to that is then when we actually have that connection and communication with the divine that is inside of all of us, and when we learn how to start listening to that inner voice, that one behind all of our, layers of memory and layers of, so that listening to that divine inside, and that's where we're trying to get to. Also, another important part that we covered was that there's even if we look at, the idea of intuitiveness, and that's spoke about a lot in today's world. And I was thinking about this, and I would say I would still break this down in two sections. And the way I would break this down is of being intuitive in two ways. Is that one, what we just spoke about, when it's beyond any influences of what we've experienced of this world through our five senses, and there's that direct connection to the intelligence of that divine. But another layer of intuition, I would say I'd put it before that, is when we just become more in tune with listening, and that is from our actual experiences of life. And so there's that level of intuition as well. And let me give you a few examples. What I mean by that is, say if you start talking to me now, and there's things that you are saying, and you may have said these things to me maybe last year, but I didn't quite, wasn't able to quite understand you or capture what you're saying, and wasn't even necessarily able to like really listen to you properly because I didn't get what you're trying to explain to me. So maybe you're telling me about an experience of something that you have with your general mental health. And I don't mean here a mental health issue, just generally with your mental health, right? Of how you see things, the psychology of how your mind works and the way you see things. But that wasn't yet in my, I hadn't had an experience of what you're telling me. You may have been telling me that, when you wake up first thing in the morning, you feel a little anxious. I'm not saying you do. This is just, but over time, as you have experiences in your life, but you're not now unconscious to those experiences. And what I mean by that is you contemplate your own experiences and learn about your experiences, and you become very aware of your experiences. That, oh, look, I found this pattern within myself. When I often do this, I feel like this. Yeah. So what you're doing is you're observing your own self, your own patterns within your own self. Yeah. That I often feel anxious when I've done that a little bit more, and then you understand it, you're looking at the experience, the feeling of it. And what happens is over time, as you start doing that with your own experiences in life, because remember, you could have that experience, but not contemplate that experience, not look at it, not try and understand it. You're just in it, you're consumed by it, right? That also becomes a layer of intuition. So now when somebody's talking, it's because you've contemplated it, sat there, right? And without you having to then consciously think about it and bring it forward, as somebody's talking to you, it will naturally, when you're in tune and listening to your own experiences that are sat there, you'll be able to then connect to people much better. You'll be able to use that layer of, it's this intuition of this from your experiences of you'll be able to understand someone, and listen to them a lot more, a lot better, with a lot more compassion. Yeah? So I see intuition in those two ways. One intuition is you're very in touch with your own experiences, and you're able to then bring them forward and utilize them as you see them in life, in yourself and other people, and as other people are talking. Yeah. And so you might now start telling me the same thing, and I'm able to just connect to you, and it's all there. I'm very intuitive in where you're going with it now, and be able to tap into that and now say, like, and really understand you. And even like we could even play a game and say, like, right there, so does this happen afterwards? I could even say, like, oh, I'm all right to complete this sentence for you, right? Like, I'm joking, but I'm not at the same time. What I'm saying there is that, so I've done that. I've had conversations with people, and I've asked them, like, when I know you can, and I'll say, look, all right, so, of course you listen to them, you let them talk. Sometimes I said, like, then do you also, maybe experience this? And often, because you're working from that experience and you're in touch with it and you're intuitively using all of that. When I mean intuitively, I'm saying, like, you're not consciously having to think back to your experience. It's just coming to you, but it's from your experience. Does that make sense? Yeah. And then often they will say, oh my God, like, yeah, like, how did you know that? And I'm so tempted at that time to say, like, I'm special. And but I resist. And it's just being in touch with your own experiences, and you intuitively use them. Does that make sense?
Completely, yeah. You spoke about it in more depth in the video on Sepang, didn't you?
Yeah.
And I think a key to all of this is being in the moment. When you're attentive to your own thoughts and emotions, then you can tap into that intuition with practice and grace. And similarly, when you listen to others, when you're in that moment with them, attentive to their words and behavior, then you're able to truly listen. And all of that's then applicable to our spiritual path, isn't it? About being in the moment. That's very important in listening, isn't it?
Yeah. So what we're saying here is, but then there's a deeper layer of it, which isn't necessarily an experience that you've had, but this is, now you've not even known that. There's no possible way of you tapping into something because you've not experienced it. And this is a deeper knowing that comes, and that's Vaheguru. And this is like all those steps. The more we become, focused in that way, it will take us to that place of that divine intelligence. Yeah. So now we can get into the actual Pauriyan Suniai Esar Barma Ind. So here, the word Esar, again, it's often pronounced as Ishar. So the Ishar here is actually referring to Shiva, and we've gone through Shiva in detail. We've got the Tregun video, and then it would have been mentioned also in the Ek Oankaar video as well. So Shiva is who's known as the destroyer, and as this perfect plays happening of coming and going, and there's this, everything comes to an end as well. Everything is limited, everything is finite, unlike the formless, which is infinite, just is constant, is continuous. So in that same way, Shiva's like that Shakti, that power that represents that. So Shiva's that represents that Shakti of something coming to an end, something that is now destroyed. Yeah. Then we've got Barma here, and whose Burma is known as the creator, who brings that creative Shakti. And then we've got Ind, and which is referring to the Indra Devta, right? And Indra Devta is known to be the king of all the Devta, of all the deities or the gods. Yeah, and sometimes we might not be able to relate to that. And there's plenty of stories you can take, from like the old texts and scriptures and the Hindu scriptures and the Sanatan scriptures. But that's not our focus here. So how can this be relatable to us then? What's been said here? So if we were just to read out like what we've put here literally is that ordinary people can obtain the status of Shiva, Brahma and Indra. And even that can be like I could become a destroyer. I could become I could have that Shakti inside of me. Another way of looking at this is Suniai, is when we become in touch with that inner knowing, beyond any memory, beyond anything, is that we actually understand. We come to that true understanding of what Shiva is. And now it makes sense what Shiva is. Now it's not like you're trying to work it out in your head. Yeah, you start to see the play of Shiva. Like that's just a Shakti, it's just a part of that one. Yeah, and a quality of that one, and you start becoming aware of it. And in that same way, you start becoming aware of the Shakti, of that power of creativeness, things that come into being and that are born. Now you're seeing this game, everything's become so clear. And in that same way, you understand like what this actually is, the whole play of Indra being this, having, so Indra's also looked at as power. Yeah, and you start seeing the power, the Shakti, the power of that one, the way that one plays out. That one plays out the powers through creativity, through destroying. Yeah, because Indra is known as the king, but the king is also like translated to power. No? You start seeing the power of Vaheguru, and that takes away ego. You start to actually realize that it's not my ego that's in control. So that then becomes more relatable for us. And then Suniai Mukh Salahan Mand, which is the second Bauri. I think this one, so many of us will be able to relate to. And I'm just going to read it out. So through listening to the one's name, people that were foul-mouthed, which is the Mand, right? Mand means, filthy, foul. And Mukh is the mouthed. And then now, Salahan, praise the one. I'm sure so many of us can relate to this one, where we lived a life constantly just, it could be, we could look at that in many different ways and layers as well. Some will translate that just literally to, foul-mouthed being somebody that swears a lot, uses a certain type of language. But here actually it's not, it's deeper than that. The mand here is when you foul-mouth the creator, when you foul-mouth God in through even moaning and saying like, God, why do I want to, like, what's so good about God? He makes all these bad things happen as well. That's foul-mouthing. Yeah. Is living in non-acceptance. Like, nah, God should not have done that. Another way of foul-mouthing is when you might be using the sweetest words ever. Yeah. But what you're actually saying to somebody is foul. You're looking down at them and you're trying to bring them down with your words. That's foul-mouthing as well. Just like Guru Sahib Ji say to us, what Bhagta are you thinking of?
Oh, Raji.
Are you thinking of one?
Yeah, but it's not coming to me. It's from Sakhi, though, isn't it?
Yeah, we're going to come to that in a minute. But even if we look at man nahi preet mukh ho gand lavat. Maharaj is saying that from inside there's no love, but with your words you're trying to tie these knots. Meaning you're actually being false. Often that's used as a metaphor for love, is tying the knot of love. So what it's saying is that actually I've got no love in my heart, but I'm being clever with my words and trying to lure you in and trap you. Yeah, and that is foul-mouthed. That's me being foul-mouthed as well. Right? My words could be perfect on the outside, but actually my intention is completely something else. You know, it's not that I want to help you. I just probably want something from you. Yeah. And that's why I'm using those sweet words. And I'm just trying to trap you into something or make you think or feel a certain way about something. So that's foul-mouthed as well. And obviously the Pankti Naas Diwar is Jin pat andar bahar guddarte pale sansar. And here Maharaj is saying the opposite now. Saying that your words might not be so great on the outside. So that's why I'm not here advocating swearing, by the way. Like, in no means a way am I doing that. But just use this as an example. There are certain people that you will meet in this world. The reason why, like, using swear words is an issue is because the connotation behind it and what your mind, where your mind will go with that word potentially, right? And because a lot of swear words are used in so many different contexts, yeah, and because the word itself is normally quite filthy, right? And it will then take your mind to that place of filth as well. And that's why. But having said that, which is like kind of where I stand and how I try and live, not to say that there's never a time when, you know, something might not slip from her mouth. And, you know, so like, again, doing a podcast, trying to be as authentic as we can. But I did go through probably about 5 years where it would never slip. But then there are those as well that might use a certain word that is known as filth or as a swear, but they're using it now in a different context. But what they're saying from inside is so pure. And this is what this could be referring to and meaning as well. Like, I've done Sangat of certain Mahapurukhs that could be quite raw. They say things to you that today people would say, oh, it's a bit rough, it's a bit offensive. If we look at that shabad that we looked at last week, and we can showcase that a little bit to some extent. What we're saying here, the shabad that we used, that mere ram hai neej karam har mere. But look at this. Jin diye so chitna avai. Maharaj is saying, though the one that has given to us, we've completely forgotten that one. Pasu Oankaar jani. Look what Guru Sahib is saying here. Look at the context they've used the word. They're not saying you have become animal-like. They're saying straight out, you're an animal now. Pasu. Oankaar jani. Saying that Oankaar jani means that I thought I'm now taking credit for everything. I'm saying it's me. It's I that karjani, that I think that it's me that's done it all, right? That it's me that's created this seed that gives us all this food, right? I'm taking all credit, completely forgotten God, right? Oh, look, my hand. Look what I can do with it. Like, I didn't design and make this hand, did I? I've forgotten that one. So now, Oankaar jani, I'm thinking I've done it. I've made it, right? My saying, Pasu. So you're an animal. If you're thinking like that, you're not like an animal, you're an animal. Yeah. And I just want to put it out there. I'm not saying this to you, all right, or to anyone, all right? Guru Ramdas Ji, yeah? And, you know, you can show that to people. It's Guru Ramdas Ji Shabad, right?
Gauri Bairagan Mahla Chautha.
Chautha, right? Guru Ramdas Ji. Yeah. And there's times when, we become literally animals because of the way we speak to someone. We think we own them. We think we can treat them however, say whatever we want to them, right? And then in that sense, then like we become like that. We become an animal. I was going to say animal-like, but Maharaj saying here, actually, no, you become an animal. You are an animal. You're not a human being there, right? So, but what I want to say here is, this is still Jin Pat Andar Bahar Guddar. What Maharaj is saying there is actually silk. And silk here is the analogy used, meaning that it's coming from a very soft and pure place. That, because so often we think like it's so easy to just say, like, speak sweetly in that manner of like, think our voice has to be a certain way, preacher, and you're lovely, you are, right?
Thank you.
And yeah, yeah. right. Yeah. And, just saying, wow, look how fast you are at everything that you do, the work, and just, you're so amazing. Yeah. And sometimes we think sweet is that voice. Guru Sahib Ji could be saying, you've become an animal. Yeah, but it doesn't mean it's not sweet. Because when the Guru is saying that, there's an awakening in there. Guru is saying, wake up from that animal state. And don't forget that one. Yeah. And so then that isn't actually mand. But it's very fine, because I know people could listen to this and blag it.
Justify
what they're saying and how they're saying it and the words they are using. And they're saying like, no, Baljit Singh blasted this in the podcast, used Gurbani to back himself up. Remember, Sangaji, like, there's the Sant Janal Singh Ji would call it like Jameer, right? ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਜੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਦੀ ਜ਼ਮੀਰ ਮਰ ਗਈ ਨਾ ਤੇ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਤਾਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਮੌਤ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਜੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਦੀ ਜ਼ਮੀਰ ਮਰ ਜਾਵੇ. And what that means is what we're talking about, Suniai. If that consciousness inside of you has died out for you, consciousness doesn't die. It's there, isn't it? But imagine having a glass, or imagine having a mirror that is completely smeared over with filth and dirt. It's not going to reflect that consciousness, that jyot, that light, is it? And that's what Sanji meant there. Ke jana di jameer mar gayi. The jameer doesn't die. What they meant was that whose mind has become so filthy, it's not reflecting their jameer anymore, their soul anymore. Yeah. They said, that's what we accept as like, they're dead now. This Pangatiyan where Maharaji talk about that, these people, it's a mare hoya. So they're actually dead. Right? Sorry, I'm not thinking of any particular Pangati from the top of my head there, huh? And there are Pangati, but like, we'll just kind of come back to our vichar. But jidi jameer jagdi hove na, when they say like their jameer, their consciousness is alive, meaning that it's speaking to them clearly. Yeah? So you can't pretend about this and actually be nasty to someone and say no, but it's coming from a good place. Like, if your jameer is alive, if your inside consciousness is clearly reflecting, the mirror of your mind, it will speak to you and tell you, nah, this isn't right what you're doing. Yeah, like this is actually coming from a nasty place now. You're actually trying to bring this person down. And, so many times that person that you're trying to bring down could be your very own partner. Yeah, so we can't lie to ourselves about it. Yeah. But I couldn't just do a simple vichar with Mukh Salahan Mand as well, because it is just deeper than like, speaking in a sweet way and using the perfect words. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, of course that's one side to it, and most of the time it will sound like that. It will actually, even to the ears, it will be very sweet. Even the words that are used actually will be very sweet, and even the tone will be very sweet. But just in case I didn't want people to think that's the only way it comes. It can come a bit rough as well. Right? I might speak to you like that, but it could be coming from a beautiful place. Yeah? Because I genuinely don't want you to go home yet. And I'm saying oya to you in this really brotherly love way, and saying like, oh my God, I don't want him to go home. I want him to sit and have a meal with us, right? So it's coming from such a beautiful place, all it is, but maybe because of where I've grown up, or maybe because of, the language that I was exposed to, and the way I spoke, and so we've got to understand that as well about, culture and Rani Beni, like who you sat with, who you spoke with, and some people come from a more educational background, some people don't. They might not be able to articulate themselves as well, right? But so that could be coming from silk, and Baja Ramnal. And because I'm actually saying, I don't want you to go, bruv. Huh? Right? But yes, sometimes in today's world, a lot of people are becoming highly sensitive. So sometimes they might not have grown up like that, or now because we're going down that route in this world where we're having to be so careful about the language we use. You can't use that terminology, you can't use that word, and sometimes we just don't know how to say anything anymore, and it's always wrong. Yeah, no, you can't say it like that, and you think, oh God, I'll leave it then. Like it's like that with mental health. It's becoming so restrictive. No, you can't say it like that. You just think, I'll just leave it then. We've got to get these things, like there's got to be a balance in these things. Yeah, of course, like we've got to look at these things, and this is all relevant to Mukh Salahan Mand. Of course, we've got to look at these things, like some things are just outright offensive if we say it like that, and it can have a long-term effect and damage, or even as a collective society, it could be very damaging to speak and say things a certain way. But then sometimes we go, it's just, we could off balance that, and it could just become too much that way. And then you almost think that, well, I haven't got that skill of language and articulation. So sometimes you just think, I'll leave it then. And you don't want people ending up with a suppressed voice as well. So yeah, like I think sometimes maybe just ask that person. It's like, you're right. Like by the way, I did mean it like this, and then you get to know each other. Like, you know where it's coming from. And it's okay. Like now, if we have to do that nowadays, that's fine. Let's do that. Let's just let them know, by the way, I this is where it was coming from. This is what I meant. And hopefully you kind of was able to capture that. But there's times when you have that closeness. And, the like the Pangati that Guru Amar Das Ji used for couples, that, tan pirhe na akhin behne ikatthe hoye, ek jot doi murti tan pir kahiye soye. And where Guru Amar Das Ji here are actually, this Pangati isn't necessarily only used for husband and wife. Guru Sahib Ji is actually, there's another Pangati very similar to this, which I don't know from the top of my head. From what I can remember, I think it's quite early on in Gurbani, might even be in Sri Rag, where Guru Amar Das Ji used the same analogy as here the Tan, being the wife, is the Sikh, is the disciple, and is the Sikh. And then the Pir, which is the husband, here is actually the Guru. And so like where we were separated and we were two before, and this is talking about like merging with God. But sometimes we can use this and we can bring it into our everyday lives as well. Where in our relationships, not just husband and wife, is even when like we're working together now. I see you as my Gorpai as well, like as a brother through the Guru, not just as a colleague. So we want to get to the point as well, like where there is that ek jot, like where it's very clear and you just know. You want to get to that point as well, where the egos don't clash anymore. And that's not just with your partners, that's with then general relationships in life. Where you want to get so kind of, wants to become so clear that in the beginning we might have to go through those little, quick chat, by the way, I meant it like this, And then eventually it becomes like just so clear, you just know. It's that ek jot. Like you're breaking through the barriers of ego and you just know. You're like, yeah, I get you, man. And that's when then the relationships start becoming very pure. And I think we're getting closer to God as well that way. And because we're going beyond our egos and, and then there's a deeper connection then. Yeah, so Suniai Mukh Salahan Mand. When you listen deep inside, you will start to say something to someone sometimes, and it's resisting that voice inside. And you will know, like I've not come from the right place here. This isn't from listening. And it's very clear, like sometimes you might actually, it might manifest as a churning in your stomach, as a little like knot in your throat. And that's like clearly, you've got to listen to that. What have I just done then? What have I just said? Don't know if you've ever experienced anything similar to that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Twice a day.
Definitely when you're getting heated with someone and there's a point in that moment where you have a choice.
Yeah.
And then if you make the wrong choice and go with the feeling, the emotion of anger or whatever it is, then you ignore whatever physical or it could be a thought or it could be a voice, an inner voice, it could be a feeling, it could be a physical thing like you said, or it could be all of them. But when you ignore that, then
the physical is normally like just within a few split seconds of the voice and the thought, and then that will follow.
Because it hurts to listen to it. It hurts you, like I have to, if you're going to listen to it hurts because you're resisting that part of you which you're trying to burn, that ego. And
it becomes so obvious, doesn't it?
It does.
This is full on ego alert. It's like, yeah, I'm on.
Yeah.
I'm here. Like, and it's sickening, isn't it? Yeah. And those that get to experience that sickening are so fortunate.
If they do something good with it.
As in, like, yeah. As in, like, that's the second part. Let's just do this part first. Because there's many people that don't. I'm sure we can think of times in our own life where we don't as well. So how do we know we're listening? We just won't allow ourselves to do that. We won't be able to, because it's telling us you can't go there. Whatever you say will be salahan, will be in line with praising God. Yeah, and I know we've gone off a bit here from the word praise itself, but the word praise itself is just, that in itself is such a state to be in. Because you've got to remember, like, what this is talking about is, remember how where we started in the beginning, that mand that can mean when you're speaking foul or you are cursing and pointing fingers at God getting something wrong. So if you go back to that now, what's an example of where for most people that would have been like the default, and they would have felt like this is the perfect time now to do that towards God? And what's a perfect example in our history where it was actually shown that it was still Salahan, still praise, when Guru Gobind Singh Ji sang ਮਿੱਤਰ ਪਿਆਰੇ ਨੂੰ ਹਾਲ ਮੁਰੀਦਾਂ ਦਾ ਕਹਿਣਾ ਤੁਧ ਬਿਨੁ ਰੋਗ ਰਜਾਈਆਂ ਦਾ ਉੱਡਣ ਨਾਗ ਨਵਾਸਾਂ ਦੇ ਰਹਿਣਾ. And this is a perfect example of Suniai Mukh Salahan Mand. And that is literally like just first of all the word mittar to come out your mouth. Because normally it'd be like, I can't believe you've done this to God. But look, remember, just watched their two sons being just completely ripped physically, body being ripped apart by various multiple different weapons, arrows, spears, and the part that we often forget to speak about is that in these battles there were guns that were used as well, and possibly shot at. All it is that we don't hear of the guns very often, but there were guns that were used. We know that Maharaji refers to the word gun as well, tupak, but in that moment to say the word friend to God, that's Salahan. Because they know it's not God that is actively, intentionally doing that to someone. Yeah? God is separate, like remains not separate. Let's not the best use of words there, but God is like unentangled, not involved in that way. Yeah? God is the watcher of this play, and lets the play out as per the way the whole hukam, divine will, works, and doesn't intervene in that, lets it be. Yeah. So when you understand that, then there's just no way you can say to God, like, what are you doing? Because you know that it doesn't work like that, because you know now. Yeah? And this is mittar pyare nu, like, is still my beloved, still who I'm in love with. And hal muridan da kehna. So we're not going to go into the shabad, but just to say that this is like the shabad that Guru Gobind Singh Ji sang in Machiwari, the jungle, after the battle of Muktasar, of Chamkaur, what took place in Chamkaur Gadi, the battle of Chamkaur, and losing so many Singhs that are beloved to them as much as their sons. We often say they just watch their sons, but like Guru Sahib Ji did not differentiate. So they didn't just lose this. They just lose two sons there. They lost, there was three that obviously came out, and then, I don't want to get into the technical side of it, of how many of it would have been then they lost at that point, 37 or 40, And so that's what Mukh Salahan means actually. Means in that moment when you willed to you what you would have said is your world to you, your family, and things just fall apart. In that moment, can you still Mukh Salahan? Can you still praise God? And still call God your friend and your beloved in that moment? And if you can, then you're listening. I know these words are so easy to say, like, but I'm only just translating the Guru's wisdom, like, and these are states that human beings can reach, though. And Guru Sahib Ji showed us that. And again, obviously, the obvious counter will come is, well, that was the Guru, and we're not going to get into it now, but we know there's stories of Gursikhs too. And I shared many of those stories of those Gursikhs in the past. And I know I've mentioned one of the Gursikhs, like who I've forgotten, the name now because it's been so long. But I told his story, the Gursikh where Guru Nanak Dev Ji sent a Gursikh to stay at another Gursikh's house to see what it means to be living in Sahaj.
By Bhikhari ji and by Guru Mukh.
Yeah, that's it. By Bhikhari ji, by Guru Mukh. And where he was literally just watching the game. His son passed away, but he continued and he did what he needed to do without losing his balance. Yeah. And that doesn't mean and that's not to say to somebody that they shouldn't have that period of grieving. But when we're talking about grieving here, we're talking about we can grieve, but still praise Vaheguru. And that we've not fallen from that grace then. Yeah. The depth of these lines are profound, and I know we went onto more of a practical journey before about when we're talking to each other. So Suniai Jugat Bhed. This one here, we can literally translate to here, like through listening, the way of union, which is Jog Jugat. And Jugat means way, Jog means union, Tan is body, Bhed is the secrets, and the secrets of the body are revealed. And what that means is that when you become so intuitive, when you become so, listening to that, you will know what to do with this body, the right things to do with this body, of where it takes you to have union with that one. Because there's layers of the body, that the mind is also a layer of the body, and then we've got the physical body as well. That you will just know that actually if I'm doing this is actually the opposite of union. It's actually breaking me from that one. Yeah. It could be, using certain intoxications. And so when Guru Sahib has warned us from becoming intoxicated and how he affects the mind, but when you listen deeply, it won't be a rule that, you're not allowed to do this. You will just know, actually, the human body is not made for this, because this isn't going to help me. This is actually going to break me away from my connection. And that will be revealed to you directly from inside, that actually doing this with this body is going to separate me instead of unite me. And you will come to learn that yourself. This is keeping me in union with that one inside. This is separating me from that one inside. So these secrets start to become clear. If I do this with my mind, if I allow my mind to dwell on this certain emotion, that's actually separating me. This emotion is uniting me. And you start to learn this for yourself, though. This isn't book knowledge anymore. This isn't somebody telling you anymore. You just know now. When somebody might say to you, yes, you should feel guilty. And when you've actually tapped into something inside, and you've become very aware, you'll say, well, actually, no, because I know what that does. That separates me. I want to unite. You won't need to read pages long, of articles anymore. You'll just listen and you'll know, no. Yeah. So then we now move to Suniai Saasat Simrit Ved. A lot of people end up, pronouncing this as Simrat, but Simrit. And the Pair de Rare nu vi apni Sihari lagdi hai. So it's set and then Mrit, Simrit. Yeah. So Suniai Sorry if I've been slipping on the Suniai. I'm not sure. I wasn't listening out for myself. But if I have, then I'm sorry.
Oh dear, not listening.
When we get comfortable, So Suniai Saasat, I just remember everyone, I'm not claiming to be there. I'm on the journey. Suniai Saasat Simrit Ved. And here, these are referring to the scriptures, again, to the old Sanatan scriptures, the Veds and the Simriti and the Shastras. And what's really being said here is that, sometimes you might read all this knowledge and all these scriptures and you're trying to work it all out. What does that actually mean? This will happen to you with Gurbani as well. You could just get stuck in trying to work it out. What does it mean? Yeah. There's that Bhakti, isn't it, where Guru Sahib Ji is saying that Je karni te puri mat, karni baj ho kate kat. So where Guru Sahib Ji is saying that when you've got the experience of something, the karni of something, yeah, so te puri mat, then you have the complete understanding of it. So this is what they're saying, Suniai Saasat Simrit Ved. I could be reading Gurbani even. I could be making all sorts out of it, the interpretation, because it's not in my experience yet. I'll still try and do the best I can of looking at the grammar, looking at the context, looking at the Guru's overall message. So the intent is then still to do the best I can in translating it. I'll look at the other Vidvans or the great of Mahapurkhs, Yani Guru Gobind Singh, the way they have translated it. So I'll try and look at that. But even that is bound to my interpretation and my experiences of life. Yeah. So then I'll still do the best possible job to put that forward. But because I could have still missed in interpretation even what Guru Gobind Singh has said, what Faridkot Tika has said, I might not have even understood that because it's not in my experience. So I've still misinterpreted the interpretation. Yeah. And then that's what Guru Sahib Ji is saying here. But you get a complete understanding when something is within your experience. I could say to you the Jyot is inside. I could be understanding that intellectually in a completely different way to the way it actually is. I could be even trying to imagine the Jyot, which you can't do, by the way. Yeah, the light of God inside. I could be trying to think it must be like this. I could be trying to put it to an experience that I might have had in the Kirtan. Yeah, where I had these, like people talk about when the hair of the body stands up, and when I've had these, like when you have this experience of like, the top of your head tingling, and I might say, well, that's the Jyot, but like, until you don't actually experience the Jyot for itself, you don't know. I might say, well, it must be like that when I get the tingling at the top of my head in Kirtan. But it's still, I'm just trying to, it's an assumption. Yeah. And, but this is Suniai Saasat Simrit Ved. And what I would say is then, we even put that. That's why what we're trying to do is we want to get to what Gurbani is saying. We want to experience love. We want to experience Daya. We want to experience oneness. And then when you start listening deep inside, and when you then start truly experiencing that divine that is communicating with you, when you then read, whether it be Gurbani, a scripture, the Shastras, the Simritiyan, the Veds, then you're like, yeah, that's what that is. Yeah, that's what that is. When you read Gurbani and it talks about, the Ras, the Amrit Ras, and somebody might just translate it to, yeah, that's talking about when you're being good people. Yeah. And then, but if you've experienced it, you're thinking, yeah, that's what that is. That's what this Bhakti is about. And then Nanak Bhagta, Sadaa Vigaas. And Guru Sahib Ji here, I'm just going to translate this again literally, and I think we will dive deeper into it in one of the other Bodhi. We've still got two more Guru Nanak Dev Ji saying here that Bhagta, the devotees of that one, Sadaa Vigaas, are in this constant state of blossom and bliss. Because Vigaas literally means blossom, and it's referring to being in bliss. And then Suniai Dookh Paap ka Naas, when you're truly listening to that divine within you, then all the suffering that is caused from our own doing of our Paap, that is when we've been resisting God, all that is destroyed. There we have it.
Beautiful.
There you go.
Vijay, this is a feeling I'm getting from this body is like, and I don't know if you can relate to this, but like, you know, you and I, we work closely together and we look at Gurbani and we analyze it, and you obviously study it to, you know, a deep level, and it reminds me of a Gursikh, and they don't have that kind of level of interaction with Gurbani. They haven't done the research, maybe the language isn't there, they don't feel so like, you know, versed with it like we do, because it's our like job as well as our passion, but they've got the qualities. And they've and Salahan, we stuck on that for a while, but that is a level of praise. So it's 100%. Like just through listening and being true to that inner voice inside, which is Vaheguru.
And that's where Guru's trying to take us.
They're there. So it's like, you know, if someone's listening and feeling like this is complicated, or I don't get it, as in the Bani or what it's saying, the translations, or they haven't read much, it's not, this path isn't about that, isn't it? And this is what the feeling I'm getting from this.
100%. What you're saying is just spot on. You know, I'm so glad you said it, because otherwise everyone's going to always think that, oh, Baljit Singh is always trying to promote that vichar. You know, so thank you. Yeah, you know what? That will get covered anyway when Maharaj says, Asang jap, asang pao, asang puja, asang tapta, asang granth mukh ved paat. There are many that express their connection and love through reading out paat. So like paat for us could be Gurbani, paat for other people from other faiths can be from their scriptures, and they're reading it out. Paat here means when you're reading it out loud. And one way of looking at paat anyway, you know, Asank Granth Mukh Ved Paat. Apne muh de naal, they're reading out that knowledge out loud. Some people will connect through that way. That's not the only way. You know, some people are just there. They're just in love. They're just in that state of compassion. They're just in oneness, not discriminating, seeing everyone as one. And ultimately, that is it, isn't it? Yeah. So, yeah, don't ever feel like, oh my God, I need to know so much. That's not what the Guru's saying. Yeah, Guru's saying, I want you to be there. Say Fateh.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
Vaheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji ki Fateh.
If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, share and subscribe. Please donate and help spread Guruji's message. Link is in the description below. Vaheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji ki Fateh.